Hey guys, it's Sonia here with Fresh Approach Fitness, a wellness company. Welcome, welcome. This is episode number 81 of the podcast series, and we have another heart-to-heart happening. So this is fantastic. We're gonna have a special guest, Lissa Figgins, who is going to go over some information with us on priorities. But you know me, you know the way I like to deliver content is as if we're having a conversation. So we each have our coffee cups, and I'll introduce Lissa in a minute, but we each have our coffee cups and an explanation as to why these are our coffee cups of the day, or the hour, or the moment, because she's been following along with me and I've been following along with her. We've written a book together. Do you have your book handy?
I do.
Awesome. So we both co-authored in this book together. And for those that are just listening to the audio, it says 20 Powerful Women in Network Marketing. You can contact either one of us for how to reach or how to get a copy of the book. But listen, you can catch these heart-to-hearts on the YouTube channel or just listen to your audio on your favorite podcast. Lissa has a podcast as well. So we're going to mention that and add those links to the comments at the end of today's show. So before we go too far, Lissa, I'm going to tell everybody how I met you first, okay, and then I'm going to hand you over the mic, and I'd love to hear from you a bit of a bio, where you're at today, just almost like your cottage, your why. Share with us a deep version of you, okay? And before we got on the show, guys, I actually said to Lissa, I said, before you answer these questions, before we move forward, I want you to answer these questions. What we talk about, which is very impromptu, as you know by now, I'm very impromptu. I want you to answer these questions as if you are addressing the scenario from your future self. So you're not answering the questions based on your prior experience, but where you want your life to be. How would that person answer these questions? So I know I met Lissa 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, and it was through network marketing, and we ended up doing those chapter on the book through network marketing, but we've been in touch with each other, I want to say on average weekly since then, one way or another. Sometimes it's twice a week, sometimes it's 3 or 4 weeks out, but we have literally grown together. Different parallels, we've stepped into our next level selves, and all of this has happened because we trusted. We had faith. We believed in what we're doing and how we're helping other people. And it always starts by sharing our personal story. So we were obviously intrigued and curious by each other's personal stories that we've stayed in touch. We've locked arms and helped each other throughout our individual journeys, stepping into that best version of ourselves. For those that are not able to actually see Lissa right now, she hasn't stopped nodding in a while. So I'm going to hand this over to her. She can introduce herself, and we're going to go from there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I always love connecting with you, and the fact that everyone gets to listen into our conversation, I just think is extra fun to be able to do that. And that's why I love being an entrepreneur, being a coach, being in network marketing, because I get to meet people like you every single day. But not that many years ago, I didn't even know that something like this was possible. So just to give you a little bit of a background on me, I've been married to my husband for almost 26 years now. We've got 3 kids. The youngest is a senior in high school. So, a few months from now, we'll have an empty nest. And really, my journey started, it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly when it started, but I want to say my first wake-up call was in my 30s when I had a cancer scare. And so I really started paying attention to my wellness and what was I doing, and were there things I could do that would be preventative? Because although my diagnosis didn't end up turning out to be what they thought it was after surgery, I didn't want that one day. And I looked around, I saw a lot of women who struggled with health, who struggled with wellness, who struggled with weight, who struggled in those areas. And so I really, as an educator, that's what I did in my former life before kids. I dove into educating myself about what does healthy living look like, and it started with food. And then it, bled over into what I was putting on my body because of my skin absorbing everything. And then what I cleaned my house with, and just really kept diving in and learning. Now, really my second wake-up call, which I think was just as valuable, if not more, was the year that I turned 40. And you know how you hit a milestone in life, or a significant birthday or anniversary or an event, or just one day you just kind of pause and you're like, wow, how did I get here? Who am I? Where am I going? Right? You start asking some of those questions, and 40 was hitting me like, wow, okay, this felt so far away, and now I'm here. Like, what is life going to look like after this? And I found that in my 30s, I had been in more of a survival mode. I wasn't flourishing. I wasn't growing. I wasn't using the gifts that God had given me to do the things I'd even done in the past. I really was just one foot in front of the other. Where's the next place I have to show up, but not fully present, even though I was physically there. And I really didn't know who I was, what I was good at, what I wanted to, any of that. So I started asking questions, started really praying about it, started talking to some good friends. And that led to me saying yes to network marketing, which I was that girl who always said, no, thank you, right? I would host events for my friends because I loved their stuff. And of course I would support them because that's just the kind of person I am. But no way, I'm not a salesperson. I don't do that. But I started with a company that's all about healthy living inside and out. And that really intrigued me because of what I had learned. And I felt like this is a message that women needed. And while I started looking at the physical part of it, right, the wellness piece, I had no idea that the personal growth and the leadership piece was exactly what I needed, right? You step into this and you have no idea what it really is and what's going to come of it. And so that has just been a journey. It's almost been 9 years now. So, I mean, not only am I healthier, and have more vitality and energy and things like that physically, but, I've grown a ton. I've gotten to connect with amazing women like you and like people who are listening to this podcast and hear their stories and ask questions and really challenge each other and really find out, who are you and what is it that you feel like you're called to do? And along the way, I found I was having a lot of conversations with women around priorities. And, as women, and we can talk about this in a minute, but, we have a lot of balls in the air. And I knew for me, I needed to be focused if things were going to happen. Otherwise, life was going to take over. And so, long story short, I've stepped out into, officially, because I was doing it unofficially before, but coaching women after 40 around life priorities. And if they have a business, incorporating that as well, because let's be honest, we all have a lot of balls we're juggling every day, right?
I love that idea. I mean, there's so much, and this is ladies, and well, it's mainly ladies that listen to this podcast, but gentlemen, if you're listening, either by choice or by chance, we're not the only ones going through this. We wouldn't each have podcasts. We wouldn't each have written chapters in our books. Take a look around you and ask yourself, how can I relate to this? Because I am closer to 50 than I am 40. Liz is closer to 40, right?
No.
Oh, are we about the same age? Okay. Okay. So here's the thing. We have different reasons. We have different whys. But what else do we have in common? We're vibrant. We've got lots of energy. We have that passion. And what we're trying to show you today is when you align things in your life that matter to you, what I've been saying lately is you are your calendar. There should be nothing on your calendar that does not bring you joy. But start by identifying what's on your calendar. I've renamed my calendar to affirmations. For the first hour and a half of my day, I am healthy. That includes meditation. That includes a little workout. That includes eating healthy. That includes a shower and time to listen to personal development. Those are my priorities. When I look at my calendar, all it says, I am healthy. I know what that means.
Yeah.
Right? On Fridays, I don't have all of my blocks filled. I just have to share this other one because you're going to be able to take this to the next level. I know it. On Fridays on my calendar, it says, a CEO knows where her money goes. Right. And we are all the CEOs of our lives.
Yes, I love that, because one of the conversations that I have, I ask women, like, do you have priorities, right? And I don't think you'll meet anybody on the planet who would say, no, I don't have priorities. Everybody thinks, yeah, I've got priorities. I'm like, okay, great. So as an educator, I always like to start with a definition. So definition is of priority is something that is more important than something else. Okay, so yeah, people will say I've got priorities. And then the next question I ask them is, okay, show me your calendar, right? So I love the fact that you are naming those time blocks on your calendar, because we can say we have priorities, but our calendar truly shows if we really do have priorities, right. And there's oftentimes this gap between what we say and what we do, because we're not making space. We're not making our priorities, I'm putting that in quotes, a priority, if we're not giving them a space on our calendar, right? Or in our day.
part of that reason is we haven't been taught any different, right?
Mm.
Like in terms of life, we've been taught to go to school, and maybe go to school some more, get a job or a husband, and then get the job or the husband or the wife, whichever it looks like, have the dog, have the babies, climb the corporate ladder, retire, live happily ever after. Honestly, that's all we were taught. That's all our predecessors knew. Now you're lucky to have one job for more than a year or two. Honestly, like you're not going 20 to 50 years with the same company like people did. That loyalty, that growth, that sense of community no longer exists. So now people are searching elsewhere for those things.
So true. So
It's
true.
so true. So
And life is happening so quickly around us too. And I think that's part of it as well, that it's not just what are my priorities, but now, you know, my spouse has these priorities, my kids have these priorities, my boss or my team or this place that I volunteer. And, you know, there's all these different things. And so what I find is oftentimes we're spending more time on what's urgent and those things that are being thrown at us that we feel like I have to just take care of this now, versus the things that are truly important, you know, to us.
And I would say, and I loved how you said this earlier, and this is where I'm like thinking about my words, is the professional and the personal. We are who we are. Different elements show up with different people and with different passions and where we spend our time. You're going to get a better version of me if you speak with me before noon or actually before 3 than you will if you speak to me at 8 o'clock at night. And that's just within a day. You add hormones, you add feelings, you add other things to that equation, hunger, being tired. So knowing that we're going to get a different version of ourselves, but this is still who we are, right? What we are in one part of our life, we are in every part of our life. And that goes back to what you were saying as well about priorities. You know, so if you're overweight, you're likely overdrawn. You're likely overstressed. You're likely over budget, like I said. So think of those priorities in alignment of personal and professional, because your life is your life. How you fill that time is what we're going to talk a little bit more about with priorities and how helping you think differently. But that's all this is about. Creating what I like to say, live your life by design. Are you ready to live your life by design your way? Your way is different than my way. It's different than Lissa's way. Right?
Yeah, I love that, because I think so often we just let everything and everyone, we get swept up into the flow of what's happening around us. And if we're not careful about our environment and who we're surrounding ourselves with, what we're putting our time and attention on, it can be very easy to just be tossed back and forth by the waves of whatever's going on around us, positive or negative, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's moving us in the direction of what's our priority, right? Yeah. And we live in this culture where, you know, hustle and bustle and grind and, you know, and all of that is celebrated. And so I don't think we often stop to really pause and consider, like you said, is what's on my calendar bringing me joy? Or is what's on my calendar moving me in a direction that I really want to be? Or am I just taking another step because that's the next step that's in front of me?
Or expected of you.
Exactly.
But expected by who? And do they matter? Yes, maybe at one point in your life, your parents' opinion was the only thing that mattered. But now that you're in your 40s and you know who you are and you know your values and your morals and that you've got an open mind and you are willing to step into that next level, that says a whole heck of a lot. Right? I actually just wrote a poem I would love to share with you. Let me know what you think, okay? I literally just wrote it and emailed it to myself. I just want your first initial impact. Like, I'm very proud of it. I'm about to post it shortly when we're off the phone. So the title is, Who Else Can Relate? She is stretched to the max. She is going through lots. She took some hard hits. She can't fall down. She's barely keeping up. No way she can catch up. She needs to pause. She needs strength. She needs hope. She needs acceptance. She needs a coach. She needs happiness. She needs a friend. She needs laughter. She needs a change.
I love that, because I think that's where a lot of people, myself included, I don't feel like I'm fully her anymore because I've done some of those things that you mentioned in there, right? But I think so many times we run ourselves into the ground, right? Or even just as women, we have this almost innate sense to nurture, to care for, to serve, to do things for everyone else, and yes, God made us that way for a reason, to care for our families and care for the people that are around us, but not to the neglect of, of feeling like that, right? Because once you get into that point, here's what I'm going to say. When I was at that point, that was me in my 30s. Okay. I was focused on my kids, but I was not giving them a full sense of me. Like they were not getting the best mom possible because I was not taking care of myself. So they were just getting the shell of me. And that was actually selfish. I hear women say, oh, it's selfish for me to think about myself. I've got to do stuff for my kids or, my career or, my husband or whatever. But if they're only getting a shell of you, I feel like that's selfish. And so that woman, I can relate, like that's where I was. And I think so many people are. And yeah. And your
I couldn't agree more. And I just wrote it seconds. Remember how I said my parents? So guys, right before we hopped on, I was worried about being late because my parents literally showed up not even 5 minutes to the hour, and we were recording on the hour. And it's like, I had to shoot them out. But before I shoot them out, I couldn't just say, get lost. Like, you have to be nice, right? They're mom and dad. They're your everything. And I had to explain what a podcast is to my 75-year-old folks. And it didn't matter what I said. I didn't have enough time to slow down, to describe it, and not to be late for this call. So they have no clue what I'm doing. I'm like, it's a recording of me talking. That's how they heard it. I can't say I'm influencing people now, but anyways, it's kind of funny how that moment I will remember. They made me laugh. They were able to come into my life during the day. And you know what? And you and I kind of said this at the very beginning. Who cares that they interrupted by 5 minutes?
Right.
That's a pleasure. Many people don't have their parents. So, and that's a good interruption. That's not me saying, oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm so sorry. That's me saying life happens.
Yeah. And you built a life around what's important to you so that you have the freedom and the opportunity to say, yes, come in. I want to see you in the middle of the day. Right. And not everyone has those choices, or not everyone has made those choices to build a life that gives them those choices.
And that is a blessing. When there's change in our lives, there are blessings, but we don't see those blessings right away because they are what our future self wants. If we've done the work to get there, it's exactly what our future self wants. And it's different. We're used to what's comfortable. So we go into a state almost of grief because we're grieving the old version of us as we're transitioning to the new version of us. And this is what happens when we stay consistent, and being consistent starts by having priorities.
Yes. Because we have to know where we're going. It's like going on a road trip. If you don't know where you're going, what, you're going to turn on your driveway and turn left, and then what? You've got no idea. So when we go on a road trip, what do? We know where we're starting from, which is probably our home address, right? So we've got that nailed down. The GPS knows right where we are. And then we tell the GPS, or we tell our brain, this is where I want to go. And then, we take the path then to get there. And we may not even, if it's something close or something we've driven a lot, we may know every single turn that we're going to take and be fine. But if it's a bigger, longer trip, we may not know what that looks like. But what I heard in your poem, if I can go back to that, I think ties in really to what my passion is in helping women with. The first thing I heard in your poem was that girl finally recognized where she was, right? She realized, I am exhausted. I mean, some of those words that you said, she realized what place she was at, right? And so that's that first place is, where am I? And, and getting and having kind of that starting point, I guess. And then the next thing was, what she needed, right? And where she wanted to go. So obviously she didn't want to stay there, right? And that's not where her final destination was. So starting to envision where would she want to go, right? What would life look like? Where would she want to be? So that she's got that destination, in mind. But then what comes in the middle of it that you said is that she can't do this on her own. That she needs a coach, she needs accountability, she needs a mentor. We have great intentions, ladies and men, but we have great intentions of doing things and getting them done. And yet, how many times are you looking at that checklist and yet again, it's still sitting there staring at you, or that app on your phone that's, going to try and keep you organized, and you never ever get to the things in that list. And so having somebody else can, help you, especially if you don't know what the route is, right? I always use the GPS. If I don't know how to get somewhere, I'm not just going to start driving and hope I end up where I want to be, you know.
See,
so.
this is where we differ a little. I like the story that comes with the adventure. That's probably why it might take us a few more years to road trip together. We might meet at the same destination, but I do like the adventure. But the thing is, either way, whether you know where you're going exactly, or you trust your intuition enough that all it takes is that one step out the door, whichever one you are, I know you can relate to everything I put in that poem. We all can. And, you know, Lissa can help you get there in terms of figuring out what's important to you. We both can. We're both. And here's what I want you to take away from this heart to heart and any of the heart to hearts I do. We're both in very similar realms. We offer a lot of parallel services. We are friends. We are beyond acquaintances. We are friends. We've never met in person, but that's irrelevant. Okay, we've known each other for years. And we are in a space where we are co-creating. When you co-create, you get rid of the thoughts of scarcity, because that means you completely believe that there is more than enough abundance to go around. I'm not worried about Lissa. Lissa's not worried about me, because whatever happens, happens, and we're growing together. We are doing more than worried about ourselves and our bottom line. We are completely out of, those thoughts don't cross our mind. It's how can we serve others to the best of our capacity? We are both coaches. We both have different levels of expertise. We both offer different personalities. I don't call mine priorities. I call mine design your life your way. It doesn't make a difference. The point is, you need to be linking arms with somebody. If there's any change that you want in your life, mental, financial, to do with movement, to do with mindset, to do with meals and nutrition, it doesn't matter where you start. This is where I would say take that first step. If you're not happy with where you're at right now, take that first step, because most people are too afraid. And what's holding you back? Is it fear? If it's fear holding you back, go listen to my podcast number 80. Have you done a podcast on fear or faith?
I wind it into a lot of our conversations. So I don't have a specific number to send you to, but I will say this, just in relation to what you're talking about, is just because, you know, when you take that first step, you don't even have to know what the next step is.
Right.
You know, sometimes it's just, you know, like you think about, if you're driving somewhere in the dark, your headlights don't show from where you start to where you end up. They only show so much room in front of you, right? And so you drive as far as you can see. And I think that's, you know, what you're talking about is you don't always have to know. And there's a fear of the unknown, you know, the dark, the unknown, the what's out there. But that's okay, because you just take that next step and things get clearer, right? As you keep moving in that direction. So yeah. Can I share one of my favorite quotes?
Pardon me?
Can I share one of my favorite quotes that I think?
Yeah, please do. Oh, Hannah wants to say hi. Hang on.
Okay. So I heard this quote a few months ago, and I remember exactly where I was. I was having lunch. I was on my back deck, and I was listening to another podcast that I absolutely love. And I had no idea that this quote was literally going to probably almost come out of my mouth every single day since then. But it was this: it was never DIY your greatest priorities. And I thought, isn't that so true? You know, like, we get help with all the little things. We get help getting our nails done, getting our hair done, maybe getting our house cleaned, maybe, you know, with the kids, or, you know, whatever it is. And yet we think we can take on these big things, like, you know, like an important relationship or a business or a big dream or goal or whatever it is. We think, okay, I can just tackle this on my own. And yes, you can. And there are people that have done that. But what I love about what you and our hearts is, like, let us come alongside you, right? Like, let's walk this with you, so we can help point out blind spots. We can help make it easier to, you know, to make your plan and to make those decisions, and to, you know, to see the things that you may not see, and hopefully shorten the learning curve. Yes, it's still your journey, but having someone that is not yourself, because we let ourselves off the hook way too easily, right? Or we just silently quit on ourselves, and I think that's hard.
It's the accountability piece. That boils down. That's where I specialize. See, I would specialize in keeping you accountable, while you and Lissa works on priorities. There's a way that we work together in harmony, guys, but it's cool because it's the same accountability, the accountability part that is so easy for people to mess up on. And then one slip, and they feel, because they're so ingrained to that perfect life, they also want quick results, and they also want instant gratification. So they want, you do the work, you get paid. You pay for something, you get the download. We get that instant gratification. So when we're doing the work for our physical self and we're not getting that instant gratification, we need the tools and the resources in our toolbox. And for those listening to this, this is exactly why every coach that I know works with at least one coach. We need the tools in our toolbox to be able to get out of that particular moment or to deal with that particular scenario. And that could be meditating. That could be setting your day up properly, or that could be more retroactive. But there are so many resources, and if it was that easy to stay accountable, 100%, we'd all be doing it by now.
And everybody would reach every goal that they ever set. And yet,
ever, always.
Right? I mean, you look at it, and 98% of people are not reaching goals, and 2% are, and have, more than everybody else does. And why is that? It's because not only did they have a goal, but then they had that accountability and the intentionality to, again, we can say we have a priority, but if you don't have the intentionality of a plan and accountability of actually walking that out on a regular basis, you're not going to get very far on your own. And then I had somebody tell me yesterday, she's like, my husband's a little too close to me to be that accountability partner. Sometimes I think we have a well-meaning friend or family member that we think, oh, this person can hold me accountable. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes we need somebody who's not emotionally involved and has that outside perspective, right?
Well, and here's the thing, you actually want it to be somebody you aspire to. If you're the one searching for that person, and you really don't want to know them all that well, but there's something about their life, personality, vibe, energy, whatever it is that you want.
So true.
You like their energy, you like their feeling, and search for that avatar, search for that personality, search for that fairy tale, because that's what we've done as kids, right? We watched comics, we wanted to be Batman, and we wanted to be Spider-Man, and we wanted to be Superwoman. We wanted to be Cinderella. How many of us right now in today's society did not have that Cinderella life that we were promised at every bedtime story? We were promised that life. Our parents, and I'm not blaming our parents, nothing, but that generation, without knowing it, without paying attention to it, because they were on autopilot too, were reading us that exact same story over and over and over again. That there will be tragedy, but you will have a forever after.
Right.
Yeah. Or how many parents avoided the realities of how that affects our real life because they just didn't even pause to think about it because they were so busy going through the motions. How can we mentally help our families? By doing things differently, with different priorities, but still teaching those same life lessons.
How often do we grow up? Yeah, so often we grow up to be just like the environment that we grew up in, right. Which may be a bad thing or it may be an okay thing, but that's because that's what, those are all those beliefs and those attitudes and those, those things that were built into us, like you said, from our parents who didn't know any differently. And, sometimes if we want to do something different, we have to break out of that box, that box of thinking, that paradigm that we've been operating in, for so long and start to think in a different way to get different
and the best way to think of that, like to start that thought, is this the life you want for your kids? At this point. Yeah, I'm happy with, if my kids, I wish my kids wanted my life. I could help them get there and they would enjoy more of it. I can teach them all of the tricks of filling up their life in terms of spending more time at the beach and with the people that you love while making money. Residual and passive income. I would love to teach my kids that. They're not interested. They're not ready. But yes, the sooner they can love this life, the longer they're going to live, happier, healthier, less health problems, more put together, more grounded. That's a better wish for this world as far as I'm concerned than anybody can really imagine, because we can course correct and do this. Coaches, people, personalities, employers, we can all do this together easily just by doing what we're doing today.
Yes. And I love something that you said earlier. I want to circle back to about who you're looking to for advice or for help or for mentoring. you know, and they often say you don't go to your mechanic to get tax advice. You don't go to your tax guy to get mechanic advice, right?
Right.
You go to the person who's an expert in that area, or like you said, a person who has already accomplished what you want to accomplish, who's already done, you know, or is further along on that road than you are. That's the person that you want to go and say, because if you just go to family and friends, you know, and they're not thinking outside their boxes, they're just going to defeat you and make you feel like that's not possible, you know. But you
And they're going to judge you.
Yeah.
They're going to judge you based on their own biases, which again, we're not adding positive or negative here. We're just saying based on their own biases, they're going to judge you one way or another. And that's going to change the dynamics of your relationship. So I always said, if I get married again, I know Tony and I call each other husband and wife, but we're not married. And I always said that if I ever get married again, I would go to a beach and elope. Because at the end of the day, I've gone through 2 divorces. And at the very end of the day, your family and friends are not there to help you fix it. They're there to take sides. Mm-hmm. And that's not what anybody needs in a time of crisis. We just learned this. We know this as human beings. So and I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one that's experienced this. Probably everybody listening to this is like, yes, they take sides. That's not what they promised to do at your wedding, friends. So why would you invite them to that intimate space again? But take that same image now and think of everyone else that is in your life currently. Are you learning from them? Are you growing from them? Do you enjoy their company? You might not be learning or growing, but you might love their company. They might be a staple no matter what in your life, but you only see them 3 times a year.
Yeah.
For your own good.
Right? And that's why we have different levels of people in our life, you know, people that are just connections, people that, you know, we allow into some, you know, some parts, and then people that get into who we are on the inside. And, you know, and that's what we want to grow. And I like to say, you can always invite other people in. So like one of my favorite ways to do that is listening to a podcast, you know, because you get to, you know, invite someone in, and you're, you know, I can think of where I was when I heard somebody say something, whether I was driving my car or mopping my floor or cleaning my bathroom or doing something in my kitchen. That's typically when I'm listening to a podcast. And, you know, it's allowing people into your life that are going to speak truth and that are going to speak life into you. Right.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because you're absolutely right. When you make a conscious choice as to where you spend your time and attention, you're attracting that information. Whether it's through a conversation, whether it's through words on a textbook, or whether it's audioly. And keep that in mind. Again, which element makes you feel the most pleasure? Maybe you don't like reading, but you like walking. So instead you'll listen to an audiobook while you take the dog for a walk. Check, check, check. This now becomes part of your daily routine. So now you're not snacking at 3 o'clock because you're taking your lunch at 2:30 and you come back and you're energized, right? Now you're shifting all of these different energies and you want more of that. That's now become a priority because of how it makes you feel.
Yeah. I love that. There are 3 things I like to say, if I can share these.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's thinking about their priorities, the first one is deciding that you are important, you know, and stop saying someday, or, you know, if I could, I would, or, you know, like those things, and just rationalizing, because I really think time is just going to keep filling itself. It's a vacuum, and we have to just make that decision to say, you know, I am worth it. And this, you know, this is going to help me to be better. And so that I can do all these other things and serve people better. So the first one is deciding that you are important. The next one is what's important, you know, and that's, like you said, it's going to be different for everyone. You know, what's on your list is different from what's on my list. And yet there are threads that go throughout there. You know, but it's really getting clear on not just what matters to your parents or even to your spouse or to your kids, or, you know, I mean, they may be a part of that, they may be a factor in there, but really getting clear on what's important to me. What's really going to make me feel like I'm making an impact and I'm leaving that legacy and I've got that joy as I go through life. And then the last one is decide how important it is, right? Because that's going to be that true test. Are you willing to invest time and money into the things that you say are important? You know, and it's going to take work. You know, it doesn't just happen on its own. You know, we all know there are laws in the universe that, you know, things go from order to disorder if left unattended, right? That's what they're going to do. And the same thing happens, you know, with us. If we are not being intentional with the things that we say are priorities, you know, it's not going to just happen on its own.
I love that, because you're actually helping people qualify their own priorities in life. You're not telling it for them. You're helping them identify and prioritize themselves by asking themselves these trigger questions. Then once they get to that third question, are you willing to invest time and money for what's important? Once they get to those answers right there, that's when they should be outsourcing a coach. At that point, if it's weight loss, a weight loss coach. If it's energy, an energy coach. Or having multiple interviews with coaches. But it's at that stage in your question series where we would love to hear from you, either one of us. Conversation. And Alyssa, I know you have resources for people. She is definitely going to put her information. We're going to put everything together in the link, and you'll be able to grab it in the comments of the show. You can always, always, always email me, SONYAJANISSE@gmail.com. And Alyssa, do you want to tell them yours?
Yes, you can find me at Lissa at lissafiggins.com. Here's how I remember, it's Melissa without the M-E, because it's not about me. And then Figgins has 2 G's. And I would love to offer a gift to your audience. I just created a new reusable daily priorities planner. And I help you go through 7 key areas of your life. And these are 7 key areas that everybody needs to be thinking about, but your answers are going to be different based on what's important to you in those areas. But it helps you to keep those top of mind, and then to be able to put those into your day, your routine, like you were talking about, so that you're giving them a place and a space, you know, to really make them a priority. So you can find that on my website, which is lissafiggins.com, or you can go directly to the opt-in page, is lissafiggins.com/dailyplan.
Awesome, Lissa. My contact and information will be on here as well. You know, it's Fresh Approach Fitness, a wellness company. You can either Google that or my first last name, and you can find information on my products and services as well. But that's, again, secondary to the information that I hope that you've taken away from today. I hope you've learned a couple of things. There are amazing women working behind the scenes to create an abundant world of peace and happiness and health, honestly. And no matter what that looks like, that's part of both of our visions, whatever that looks like to us. The second thing is, we're moms, we're entrepreneurs, we're spouses, we run households, we run our life, and we have made some significant shifts and changes in our life to run our life the way we want. So as I've mentioned, I help people design your life your way. Lissa helps you with priorities. I really want to thank you for joining us today. What do you say we do this again one day?
I would be all for it, right?
Yeah.
Someday it'd be really fun to be in person with our coffee cups and, you know, get to sit by the water on the beach and talk about
at
these
my
things.
cottage.
So
at my cottage.
On my dream board, yeah, at your cottage.
Awesome. So she's gonna love the retreat that I'm working on, but I'll tell you guys about this a little bit later. I know I keep on fidgeting with my hair. It's just driving me crazy today. So for those that are catching the video component, I keep on my left-hand side, I keep on playing all day with my hair like a little girl. But you know, when you look at yourself and it's like, oh, it's longer. Oh, it's blonder. Oh, it's kind of curly. Like, it just isn't quite what you thought it looked like. And all of a sudden you see growth and change in something different, and a different feel and vibe and energy. And it's a good thing. And it's like happened overnight. And that's what happens, guys, when you start putting yourself as a priority in your own life. You almost become unrecognizable because you are living a true, authentic version of yourself. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to sharing this with your audience and my audience. Do you have any questions at all before you go?
No, just when are we going on this retreat? I want to know more about it.
Okay, I'm going to fill you in case anybody catches this. So you've heard me talk about the coffee cup analogy. Okay, so I don't have my own cottage yet, but I'm working really hard on it. And I was able to connect with another lady who owns a cottage that I can rent out as a retreat. So technically I can start my retreats right away. So I booked a tentative, I booked a tentative date. And how it works, so if anybody's listening to this and you're in the London, St. Thomas, Windsor, Chatham area, definitely want to lean in and hear me out. So I'm looking for 8 people in network marketing. This place sleeps 10. I want 8 people in network marketing. So for instance, you would be presenting 1.5 to 2 hours of a service. You would be delivering information and value about your product and service. So let's say you and I are both with Arbonne. We didn't tell the audience this, but we're telling them now. So let's just say you would be the one coming to this retreat, and I would say, do a presentation. Here's what people like in the past: healthy eating on a budget, or maybe healthy eating, quick snacks. You know, make a month's worth of quick snacks with Arbonne. That's a great title. That's a great example. So now you can take protein powder and make pudding. You can throw things in the freezer. You can make peanut butter balls. Like, you can make all pancakes. You can make all of these things, show people how to use the product. Or if you're with Voxox, for instance, you're taking people on an hour hike, coming back and explaining why Voxox is a perfect fit for after a hike. Okay, if you do chalk couture, people are showing up in your class and doing creative for an hour, and then that's their piece, right? So 8 network marketers, they're each going to present at least 1 session. Okay, they pay $425 for the weekend. On Sunday, they get an exclusive workshop with me together as a group. Okay, so when you workshop, I am teaching, and I will do it exclusively to the network marketers. On Saturday, we were inviting upwards of 250 people will get an invitation. The first 45 people to register will register for the event, pay for the event, no refunds. They will come for 1 day, participate in 3 sessions, get a goodie bag, have 2 snacks and a meal as part of their $79.
Wow, that sounds amazing. You've got it worked out. That's
what do you
exciting.
think?
I think it's
So
fantastic.
here's the thing, we can do this anywhere.
Yeah.
I can do this anywhere. I have the contacts, I have the know-how, I know what I'm doing. I can bring this to the States. I can bring this to Toronto. I can travel and do this. I can do a new venue every weekend. And 45 girls or women isn't that many, but the 8 people that do the network marketing, they're going to co-create. They are in an environment where there's nobody competing. We're working together. We're going to encourage and help each other, and we're going to deliver over and above services to those people that show up on the Saturday.
Yeah.
We're going to make them feel like we're all best friends by the end of the day and that they don't want to leave. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And that's how we grow, right? We grow by working together and by being inspired by others and sharing what our unique gifts are, and, you know, and just making connections. That's fantastic.
Well, we should, you know, not talk all day, because we can do that. But I will let you go, and I'm going to send you all of the information very soon. And guys, this is going to be posted very, very soon. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.